So the next topic I'm talking about is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who I think is a real good, honest politician, uh, a new politician at that, who I'd mentioned before has pulled off the shocking upset of the fourth-ranking Democrat in Congress and the likely heir apparent to Nancy Pelosi, Joe Crowley. So first, I'm going to just talk about something she a little bit stepped in, because thinking about politicians, this one thing we have to remember: no politician is perfect. Not Bernie, not Cortez, nobody, and that's one of the things I think was a problem with Hillary Clinton's campaign. There's a little bit of a thought that she's perfect, and that's a problem with the Trump people too. They think Trump is perfect. Uh, we don't want to get into the business of hero worship, because nobody's perfect. And just like we see, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is 28 years old. She's a novice in politics, and she's going to have some hiccups along the way. That's to be expected, and we have to remember that. So she was interrogated basically on the issue of Israel-Palestine, and she struggled a little bit. She first brought up the two-state solution. She brought up Israel having a right to exist, which even I want to believe. I want to believe Israel has a right to exist. I want to believe in the two-state solution. I've always believed in that, but when you look into it right now, as Israel has expanded settlements and everything, it's looking like a distant dream, honestly. And at this point, it's more likely probably that a one-state binational solution, turning this into a civil rights issue, is probably a more reasonable and logical path. Ultimately, that has to be decided by the parties, but so what I'm getting at is her bringing up the two-state solution was a turnoff to a lot of leftists. And then, moreover, she kind of backed off using terms like occupation and massacre, which really shouldn't be that controversial. I mean, what Israel is committing is apartheid. It's occupation, and they've committed massacres. It's just facts. So, by her own admission, she's not an expert on this topic, so people were very panicked by that. I got to give her a little latitude. This is a new topic. You can't expect her to know everything. And I am sure, and from what I've read, she's talking to very good people, good sources, and she will sharpen up on that. It was a problem even for Bernie, who's 150 years old during the campaign in 2016. He wasn't comfortable with foreign policy. So, foreign policy, domestic policy has become more acceptable to be on the hard left, what's deemed the hard left. Foreign policy is tough. You're coming at it from an angle of, right now, the think tanks and everything. It's a bipartisan consensus on all these issues, so it's very hard to break the mold. And it's going to be a process. It's changing. It's going to be a process. I think you got to give her some slack. You got to criticize, of course, and you don't want to hero worship. But at the same time, you got to remember this is, not an easy issue. She's not flubbing Medicare for all. She's flubbing Israel-Palestine, which is just foreign policy is a tough one. So it'll get better over time, I'm sure. More and more candidates will have better views, and the Democratic Party as a whole is moving away from blanket support of Israel. So, but that did lead to something that came up. Speaking of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I gotta be honest, when I saw this, I forgot this person was even alive, frankly. And frankly, I wish he was. I still didn't remember his existence. I don't want to wish death on people. It's not really what I do, but I forgot completely about Joe fucking Lieberman, and I was happy he was wiped from my mind personally. And then he pops up on a page of the Wall Street Journal urging people to vote against Ocasio-Cortez and for Joe Crowley, who's on the Working Families line. There's a third-party line in New York. And actually, they've already said, we want you to vote for Cortez, but Joe Crowley's name is still on there, which is its own fucking thing. He could have just gotten it off and solved this problem. But now he wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal. Now, is this really a big deal? Probably not, because I don't think a lot of people in the district read the Wall Street Journal. Wall Street Journal is a very stuffy, right-wing, elitist magazine. I mean, it's a fine paper, but their editorials are horseshit, to put it lightly. So I don't think they're really going to be in line with most people living in the Bronx or Queens. But I don't think ultimately it's going to have a big deal. But it just brings back where the Democratic Party has gone, where it went from FDR to Clinton, and a really, really virulent, nasty strain of quote unquote left politics when it really wasn't left at all. And now we're trying to bring it back. Even the establishment now is infinitely better than when Joe Lieberman was there in the early 2000s, in the 90s. I mean, this guy is a vile piece of garbage, one of the worst people in the country. He has no place to speak about politics. This is a guy who was Al Gore's running mate in 2000 and backstabbed him during the recount, commenting about, basically taking Bush's side on a few issues. Moreover, he voted for the Iraq War, which many politicians of that time did, and it's a vestige of the past we really, as the Democratic Party, need to extinguish. We need to get rid of that. And to top it off, he was the senator that really forced Obama to kill the public option in the healthcare legislation. And I think if there was a public option there, actually, that would have helped the popularity. Obviously, there were some technical things with the internet release of the website and stuff, but if there was a public option, I think it would have made that legislation a lot better, and Lieberman was the one who made it impossible. Because if you remember, at the time, the Democrats actually had the majority. So he stabbed Obama in the back. There's no way around it. This guy also lost in his Democratic primary, then mounted a third-party challenge to get back in office. He is now part of No Labels, which is a quote-unquote bills itself as a centrist group that wants to solve problems. And it's really just a know-nothing party of sorts. Obviously, not in a traditional sense of the know-nothings if you know history, but they are kind of a group that stands for nothing. They stand for basically this blind concept of bipartisanship without a purpose. Just nothing is there. So, if you remember, Lieberman also is no longer a Democrat. He supported McCain in 2008. He's a vicious right-wing hawk on foreign policy. He is embedded to the rich when it comes to particularly insurance companies. And for him to have the gall to come back out of whatever hole he was in and crawl out and speak is disgusting. People like him, and in England, it's kind of like Tony Blair has come out of the woodwork. These people should have been locked away years ago for what they did in the Iraq War. And that they want to come back and talk about, this Latina woman is going to cause a problem is absolutely disgusting. And hopefully, I think he's so outside the mainstream, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. But we have to always be aware for these kind of vermin to pop out of their hole when it's most likely. We're seeing it in Britain too, where you see the Conservative Party falling apart. There's a chance for the Labour Party under Corbyn, who's their version of Bernie Sanders essentially, to take power, and elements within his own party, centrist establishment elements, backstab him to keep, basically are backstabbing him right now to keep him out of power. This is what you're up against when you're on the left. You're dealing with powers that will fight to keep you down at all costs. And it's a really damn shame, because I think this is the only hope against far right-wing people like Trump and some of the people who've come into power in Europe, because we're fighting against, these guys are the basically the ideological descendants of the Nazis. So, anyways, if you ever see Joe Lieberman out there talking about anything, don't listen to him. He's a fucking liar. He has blood on his hands for what he did with regards to Iraq. He's backstabbed the Democratic Party how many times? He's backstabbed the left how many times? And since then, he's now, I think his law firm or whatever is now working for Trump. So he likes to sell himself as a problem solver. Anytime someone talks about bipartisanship and problem solving, hopefully they're telling the truth. Sometimes they are, but you got to listen to them very closely, because oftentimes it means we're problem solving to fund arms to Saudi Arabia. We're problem solving to cut taxes on the rich or to deregulate banks. It's not problem solving to cut defense spending and put that money into schools, put that money into healthcare. It's not about that. If it was about that, then bipartisanship away. There's a few cases too out there where bipartisanship might be useful right now in terms of the drug laws. There might be a useful pact, but this stuff, Joe Lieberman, don't even listen to him. He's not real. He's a phony. He's a fraud. He's a disgusting human being, and he should go back to silence and should not be involved in politics at all. The same, by the way, in England goes for Tony Blair. That guy should be in the fucking Hague for what he did. So never forget where these people came from. Never forget the history. Just because they pop in and start using flowery language, remember, do your research, read about these people, and learn about these people before you take what they say seriously. And don't read the Wall Street Journal editorial page. So